I knew when I was going through that time that I was sacrificing and doing things that most people would never be, they would never do that. They would never be willing to put themselves in that position. I am your host, Jason Julius, and today we have an Entrepreneurial Chronicle, and I'm pretty. I think I might personally enjoy this because I have a fellow visionary here at the table. His name is Dean Ballenger, and he owns the Ballenger Agency. Dean, how are we doing today?
Good.
Okay, brother. We talked about that. I'm real big about the conversation, so let's dive right in. But give me a little bit of a backstory in general, as far as where did you come from, what led you into your adulthood, and then obviously into your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, well, I grew up over in Newcastle, a little small town known for, I tell everybody, Kent Benson, Steve Alford, and myself.
Mm-hmm. and it was a thriving small community once for a time. Maybe not so much now, but yeah.
Yep. And, they wanted to not grow. Sometimes people want to keep that small community. Mm-hmm. And, so I left, went to the Marine Corps, got out of the Marine Corps, got into the car industry, was in the car industry for probably 30 years. And then,
so sales. Okay.
Yeah. And, the funny thing of it is, in the car business, for years, they've been working off of surveys, long before most everyone else.
Okay.
So what you learned was, you had to be nice and you had to do the right things because you were being graded, Yep. And then the other thing that you learned.
Okay. So customer surveys that they would fill out after the actual experience.
After the sale.
Okay.
So how did you do that? And what you find, no matter what industry you're in, there's a lot of people doing it the wrong way because they're chasing the dollar versus going after it from a service standpoint.
Exactly.
So we reached that point in my life back in 2007 that, in the car industry, it's great. You can make a lot of money with not a lot of education. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of guys that never went to college making over six figures. But you work every weekend, every holiday, and it's just not a good lifestyle.
Really? So, car dealers they're mandated to close on Sundays. Are you talking about just networking in general, or because I come from the service industry myself, so I'm gonna openly, sales is not my strong point. But you go back to the service of, they always try and say relationships are the new currency, and I'm like, I don't know what beat we missed here. Relationships have been the currency for the last couple hundred years. It's always
absolutely
been about, but. Yeah, so car sales itself, even you can't, to my knowledge, you can't sell a car on Sundays.
You can't, but you can work 52 Saturdays a week per year.
Duly noted.
Being able to do things with your wife, and we had become empty nesters.
Okay.
And we're like, okay, what's that look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so then it was about stepping away from that industry, but getting into something different that I could, one, afford to do on my own, and not have a lot of capital up front, and I could have a better quality of life.
And it's funny that my son is right at that place right now where he's been trying to find himself, and he seems to interact with people well. And the odd thing is where I'm like, people look at me today and I'm like, you wouldn't expect this out of me if you looked at me as a younger self. But that was my advice to him: go into sales, because sales is not about education. It's about talking to people. And there is a limitless opportunity if you can be comfortable and good at sales. So, are you just a natural extrovert, or is it something that you had to teach yourself to become good in the sales arena?
No, I think through education you can learn anything, right? But you got to have a personality. You got to want to help people.
Yep.
Although it's funny, my two best insurance advisors that I got are not really outgoing people.
Really?
But they are bought into helping people. And they love that. They love every day. We created an environment where the sell is not the win. Helping the client is the win. And when you do that, you create an environment that you win in every day. And if you win in it every day, pretty soon your favorite day of the week is Monday, not Friday.
Okay.
And
so that mindset?
It's mindset, right? Yep. Because even my kids, none of my kids wanted to come in my business. And
You don't say.
yeah, Dad, we're not a sales guy.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm not a sales guy. We've never sold a policy. We've went over coverages. We've helped people understand what they got, and then we help them make an educated decision. They're looking for people like us.
Okay.
So it's just changing that mindset that you're there to help and service and make a difference in your community.
So, I want to go back a little bit because I'm always fascinated by people's takes on their experience. I didn't go into the military. I contemplated it. And I you know what? I don't know. I think I've always had a certain rebel streak, and I knew that when you go into the military, like, you're giving up ownership of yourself.
Yes, you are.
As I've read, though, there is a huge amount of benefit from learning systemization and hierarchy and process in the military that I inevitably I had to learn it the hard way. But I'm sitting here going, if you did 4 years in the military, what was that experience like? What was your takeaway from it?
My takeaway, from the military was that everyone needs discipline.
This is a true statement.
You're like, well, I want to be this rebel, right? Well, rebels work at McDonald's. No offense, McDonald's.
No, I get it.
You know what I mean? So you've got to be in a service industry where you want to make a difference for people, And, a lot of the people that go into the military, they go in to serve their country, right? So you just take that mentality from going in and serving your country to coming out and serving your community.
And that makes perfect sense. So, travel a lot in the military, or?
Not a lot in 4 years, but we went over to Okinawa, went to Diego Garcia. It's a little island over in the Indian Ocean, But that was pretty much it. I stationed out at California at Camp Pendleton. The weather was beautiful,
I'm not mad at you there. Because to my understanding, it's like you have to pick like three choices, and then they tell you which one of the choices comes your way. So
pretty much.
Okay. So then you get into car sales, and what was it that was like, you know what, I'm going to hang this up and go to a next chapter and actually get into the insurance side?
Just quality of life.
Really?
Yeah. In the car industry, and you could talk to a lot of people, they're like, you miss a lot. If you're working every weekend, and you're working 2 or 3 nights a week, and you have a family with kids and stuff like that.
Yep.
You miss all that.
Okay.
So, I needed to find an industry that I could get into, that I could set my own hours. And that's something you have to learn too, because you're like, oh, I'm in business for myself. I got to be open 24 hours a day.
Yep.
No, you don't.
So you did, okay, well, just walk me through the process here. Was this something that you consciously were like, problem, this is taking too much of my life, solution, I got to pick an industry that is going to give me the freedom that I'm looking for? Or, was there anything that led you into insurance, or was it just you felt like it was a natural progression from sales to the service, going back into the service side of it?
I think it was a natural progression, because when you look at, it's a people business. So whether you're selling cars, you're selling appliances, whatever it is, it's a people business, right? And I knew from my experience that I knew how to treat people. I knew how to get referrals. So many people focus on, I want to sell this person something. I never looked at it, I wanted to sell this person something. I looked at it that I wanted to create a referral partner that will send me 10 people. So to do that, you have to deliver the wow factor.
Okay.
You got to stay in touch. You got to do. And I had been successful for that. And, it was one of those deals, just being transparent. I took a 6-figure income to leave the car industry and cut it by $100,000.
Yep.
And there was times that my wife said, are we going to have a check this month? I'm not yet, but give me time. So it took courage to believe in myself that 5 years down the road, I would be in a better position than I was then. And
that would be the blonde, the bougie blonde. She got me on a rant here in a previous podcast about fallacies, what people thought were true and what I knew to not be true, and I kind of went off on the deep end about small business. And most people, you own a business, you're a millionaire, and it's like, no, you work twice as much for half the money. And you take a step backwards.
Absolutely.
Yes. I mean, much the same, because I worked at Chrysler and I had a very cush 75 to 100 a year. And when I stepped away, that went to zero for a very long time before I actually kind of figured it all out and actually got my feet back under me. So you're saying that was about a 5-year period for you?
About a 5-year window.
Okay.
You know, the first couple of years was brutal, you know, but we had reached that point that, you know, I was the breadwinner in our family. And my wife, who was a nurse, she's like, hey, you know, you've supported us our whole marriage.
Yep.
You know, if you want to do this, I'm all in. And so we talked about it. We had budgeted things. We made sure we had things paid off, that we didn't have any debt. Because I'm like, if there's no income coming in, you can't be owing people. So you have to set yourself up in phases to win. It's not like something you can do overnight.
Well, and I mean, it sounds like you actually, sounds like you planned it out a little bit better than I did. But I do want to ask, I mean, towards that end, would you have it any other way? I mean, because I look at it myself and I'm like, I mean, I knew when I was going through that time that I was sacrificing and doing things that most people would never be, they would never do that. They would never be willing to put themselves in that position. And while I'm not going to sit here and say that I had this just wonderful, grateful mindset in the middle of it, I also knew that I was learning skills and experiencing something that inevitably I felt would serve me well into the future. So when you look back on your life, like those 5 years, would you have it any other way? Would you have?
No, not really, because I think I would undervalue everything that happened.
There we
right?
go.
You know, because every customer matters. You know, because if you're looking at, if you never struggled, you wouldn't appreciate the customer that you get on the telephone that is, you know. And
well, and that's the other thing.
Value
you get other people that look at you today, and it's just like an employee that comes in and they're like, hey, I can do that. But they don't calculate you had to start day one, customer one, and build up to what they actually do see today. So yeah, I'm sitting there going, I would think that memory even today is still very fresh in your mind of starting day one, $1, customer one.
Yeah, well, you know, and the crazy thing is it carries over into your employees. So when I hired my first employee, Jared, he works for me now.
So your first employee is still with you?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And he does an awesome job. But, you know, I'm constantly getting approached like, man, how do you have the team that you have? How do you find great people? And I said, I didn't try to steal them, you know, because so many people want to hire people and pay them as little as they can so that they can make as much as they can. And I knew in my industry, in every sales industry, 90% of the people fail. So why would I bring people in, put them on a plan that they would fail?
Yeah.
So when I brought them in, we put them on a salary. We didn't put them on a commission. And they're
really?
They're like, well, that costs you money. It does, but it's an investment in my business.
Okay.
You know, and I gave them time to learn because I knew what the struggle was for me, what it was like to get. I mean, you know, I tell people, there was a long time that I worked 70 hours a week for less than minimum wage. And that was back when it was low.
Exactly.
You know, it wasn't $14, you know, that people are getting now. But were you willing to risk that, do that, and then because you know how hard it was, do you really want to set someone else up to fail? Because how many employees have you had?
You know what? At this point, I know that the count is somewhere over 300. That's over 17 years. I know that I've hired well over 300 people, and I believe the overall count now is somewhere 75 or 80. So I'm like, yeah, no, the turnover.
Most expensive thing you got, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, but yet everyone hires employees and put them on a scale that they're going to fail.
Okay.
And you can't do that.
So you came at the insurance industry a little bit different as almost like a disruptor then, or was this just a personal culture that you wanted to see different as far as internally inside of your organization?
You know, it was one of those deals, you know, at first you're like, I can't afford it, right? So I got to get somebody cheap. Well, the problem is you think that you got to hire someone that's like yourself. And if he's really a go-getter, he'll be fine. Well, if you're just getting started, the last thing that you need to do is hire someone like yourself.
I'm glad you were going there. That's
because what you end up with is a lot of crap that you don't like to do. Now you got twice as much because they don't like to do it either. And it was so funny when I first got started, this is kind of off the wall, but I had 4 children. So I made them my board of directors. I'm like, hey, I want to run things by you. You're younger, you're smarter. I want you to coach me through some of my decisions, right?
Okay, now I'm sorry. I'm age, like 4 kids that you're going to, this is going to be interesting. 4 of your children as board of directors, what ages were they? And I mean, just how much latitude did you actually give them?
I gave them information and they gave me feedback.
Okay.
So, because when I first got in the business, everyone said, you need to hire salespeople. You need to hire salespeople. That's what you do. And it was so funny. My daughter's like, Dad, why would you hire a salesperson? Hire someone to do all the things that you don't want to do so that you can sell. You're the best guy you know.
And okay, I mean, that's great advice, but I'm like, generally you won't hear that out of a younger, inexperienced person. I mean, from my personal experience, I've had to seek out older mentors to get advice like that. I mean, generally you won't get that from a kid, I guess is what.
Well, I guess, to back up a little bit, we lived in Kokomo.
Okay.
So we moved back from the Marine Corps, and I'm like, I don't know that I want to do the car business forever. And this one guy approached me, and he was out of Muncie. I had reached out because I thought, the water here stinks, especially if you lived in Indian Heights. We ought to do bottled water. So I met with this guy, and they're like, he was an older gentleman, and they're like, what do you want to do? You want to sell bottled water? He goes, young man, nobody's going to pay for water.
So, you might have saw something before your time.
Yeah. He goes, they might pay for water in California, but they're not going to pay for it in Kokomo, Indiana.
Boy, do they now.
Do they now. So I knew at that point in time, I didn't want to go to old people that had old ways of thinking. Now there's guys out there that are great mentors, got great advice, and that might have just been bad luck. But I'm like, I've got pretty good kids. They're pretty sharp. And so I want input from someone that's fresh, thinking outside the box. So they had never been in corporate. They had never been in anything. So I'm like, what would you guys think? And they would give me input,
That's interesting.
And even when I went in, when I was trying to make this decision on whether or not I was going to quit working in the car industry and start my own business, they were big encouragers like, Dad, who else could who could be more successful at it than you? You've excelled in everything you did. Take a chance on yourself.
That is just, profound statements from children that generally I just don't know many children that'll, maybe I'm saying this from personal experience in general. I'm not going to, my children were not overly supportive, but they also, they went through the struggles of the overall, and both of them did work in the business for a time, but they both also found their way outside of it, just decided that it wasn't something wasn't something that was for them, but neither one of them, can I say, has ever dropped profound thoughts on me like that actually were that supportive or really made me think like that. That's very blessed to have some very wise children. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and keep in mind, my kids are older.
Okay.
They were in college.
Okay.
My wife and I would just celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's another rarity here in this day and age.
Yeah, so, our kids at the time, our oldest is getting ready to turn 39, and, we got 37, 35, and 29.
Okay.
And our youngest is a Marine pilot. And
really?
My daughter married a Marine. They say they find someone like their dad, and I'm like, that works for me. And, but yeah, they were really big encouragers, and, the other thing, I'm telling you, if you spend any time in any industry, mm-hmm. you can find 2 things. You find things on what works well, and you find out what doesn't. You find out how you like to be treated and how you don't. And it was funny. I had a couple guys. They said, how did you learn to be such a good boss? And I said, because your father, who I used to work for, taught me how not to be a good boss. So I eliminated all the things that he did, and that in itself made me a good person, right?
Well, I mean, but towards that, I mean, like, because I've said that before, like, while you're busy trying to right the wrongs that you see your parents making, you make your own mistakes.
Absolutely.
But so I'm like, in your perspective, while you were busy righting the wrongs of your previous employers, what are some of the mistakes that you know that you made when it come to employing people yourself as a boss?
I used to get upset when I lost an employee. Mm-hmm. But I would hire anybody that I thought I could help.
Okay.
And matter of fact, my two young employees are like, we went through a couple staff gals. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you got to stop trying to rescue everybody. Just because you think, man, you could give them a great job doesn't mean that they're going to work out.
It doesn't mean they're ready to receive it.
Yeah. Yep. One of the things that we changed how we started looking at employees was in that book, Traction.
Okay.
It talks about GWC, get it, want it, and capable of it. And so all of our reviews are based on get it, want it, and capable of it.
Okay.
And we even do our yearly reviews. Everybody reviews each other.
Interesting.
And it's funny because one of my employees that I had hired that didn't work out, she says, I'm not going to be reviewed by other people. That's crazy. I should only be reviewed by you. But she looked at the review as something bad.
Yep.
And when we do the review, it's based on do they get it, want it, and capable of it. And then what do you see about them from a strength standpoint that you think we could use to make our agency better?
Absolutely.
But they're so afraid that, they're going to judge me or they're going to do that. But, if you're not treating your fellow employees well, you're not a good fit. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, we want everyone to show up and win together. The other thing that we do, like I said, we don't pay commission. We put everybody on salary, but everybody splits the bonus. So whether you're the producer, a manager, or you answer the telephone, everybody gets an equal share.
And that right there just defies everything that I know about the insurance industry itself. You being in the industry, do you know of others that operate that way, or is this none? Okay.
None. But it's one of those deals, if you tell your receptionist that she's the most important person because she's the first phone call, mm-hmm. she's the first voice, but you don't treat her like that, will she ever believe it?
Exactly.
When it comes to the year end and we're trying to wrap everything up, my whole team, they're in it to win it. They're not individual. We do unlimited days off, which is, people go, how do you give them unlimited days off?
Freedom and responsibility.
Yeah. But it's one of those deals. If you give somebody 3 weeks vacation and he doesn't take them, he feels like he lost something, right?
Yep.
But with our team, they take off whatever they need. We had an instance where one of our employees just here this year, their little girl got really sick, and she was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And everyone was reaching out to him, and they're like, hey, do you need help? How's everything? And he's like, I don't need anything. My boss has already reached out, said, man, take whatever time you need. If she's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you don't have to worry about a thing. Everybody at the office is here to support you. We'll cover you. You're good. Your family comes first.
That's awesome. That's rare. And I say rare because this is an issue that I've battled with people, and a lot of it is my union background, where I am a competitive capitalist, but I'm not a greedy capitalist. Mm-hmm. And as you found a better way that on the sales side of it, what I see is a whole lot of turnover, and it looks to me like your way is a way that you've stopped that turnover in general.
Yeah, it's funny because I get asked a lot. They're like, man, how did you create your culture, and how do you get the buy-in? How do you get your people sold into that? And I said, well, the toughest part is you have to change. It's your people don't have to change. You have to change because you thinking that they're an expense, and you want to try to pay them as little so that you can do that. If you put your people first, your people will put you first.
And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I do want to ask though, because it's become a pretty big piece of what I have been injecting into my group. Do you force or require any type of education, any type of learning and growth in your group?
Well, that's a tough question.
Is it?
Because the answer is yes. But
I'm unapologetic about it.
Yeah,
I've seen enough or a couple examples where when I heard it, I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that, because we're all adults, and I'm like, when you think about education, you think about, okay, I can make a kid absorb and go to school and education. I don't know how comfortable I feel about that as an adult. Then I started thinking, these are the people that I'm surrounding myself with. So if they're not learning and growing, they're not bringing it to the table. And as a team, we're not succeeding on a level we could be. So I started mandating that leadership had to be constantly reading, learning, growing to show that they were truly a part of the team itself. And I'm like, you have laid a path where if it's not on commission and they're going to come in every day, knowing that they have a solid salary, well, what are some of the things that you do to always keep the group competitive and learning and growing?
Well, and when I say yes is we create an environment that they want to.
Okay.
And if you got the right people in the right seats, and that's another key, having the right people in the right seat, they want to do that. And I was not a reader in high school.
Neither was I.
That was the last thing I wanted to do. And until, late in my life did I start reading. And then I found there was so much knowledge in reading.
Absolutely.
And so selling my people on why, we talk about books, Now Traction, that was the one book that everyone was required to read, because that was the program we were going to work from.
And don't get me wrong, I have like a whole list. I think it's almost a point of pride, because I wanted nothing to do with it as a kid, but I've got all these bookshelves of all these books that I've read, and then I've got this extra bookshelf of all of these books that I've bought, and I know that I'm going to read at some point. And I know that Traction is on. I have never read that book itself. After having this conversation, it should be your next. It'll be pretty close on the list. I'm reading one right now called Radical Candor, and I'm about 20, 25 pages into it, and I'm like, I know that I'm going to get up every morning looking forward to reading this book in its entirety, because it resonates well with me.
Yeah, no, that's a great book. I've read that book.
You have, okay.
And that was one of those eye opener, right? Because you just don't think of it, because you haven't had time to experience it.
Yeah.
When you talk about rock stars and superstars, and you take that person that's the rock star, you're like, oh, well, they want to move up. Well, not necessarily. It depends on where they're at in life, right?
Exactly.
Not everybody wants to be a superstar, but you think, well, I would, but they don't. And you lose good employees because you try to push them into something
that they're not
wanting to do.
And I'll be honest, because I've had a little bit of that more often, because I realized that pretty early on that not everybody is as ambitious as me, but there's a place for them inside of the organization. And when I go back to an in particular employee that I sized her up wrong, and she wanted to be a superstar, and I didn't. I thought that my overall thought was, everything that she has on her plate right now, don't challenge her anymore, because I don't want to push her and I don't want to lose her. And inevitably, I lost her because I did not offer her those opportunities to be the superstar. And it was a disappointment that I lost somebody that I sized him up wrong. She had far more ambition than what I gave her credit for. And it was the opposite side. I lost her because I didn't fuel and feed that. And I'm kicking myself because I'm like, no, I'm the guy that I will, if you are ambitious, I will lay a path in front of you and give you challenges to push you to be your best. Because like I said, I don't want to, I'm not trying to belittle when I say cogs in the wheel, but I'm like, no, I mean, in an organization, you can't have everybody being like you and me. There has to be organizational people that they are more comfortable behind a desk coordinating and just making sure the wheels are turning. They're not looking to go out there and kill it every single day. So yes, it was a lot of times I love reading books because I find authors are able to verbalize things that I've thought about and that I've realized, but I was not able to actually put it into words. Once you can put it into words, then you understand the thought process and how it all works together.
Yeah. And, and then the other thing that we do is, as far as books, education, we pay for all of it.
Yep.
You don't pay for anything. If you have a book, you want to read a book, you think you want a book, let one of our gals know, and they'll order it for you. That'll be here from Amazon.
Really?
Yeah. And then read it and tell us how we can implement something from it to make us a better team.
And that right there. And I mean, don't get me wrong. That's the thing, is because I think that at this point I've turned it into like a book club, because I try and I'm passing out the books, and then we've gotten to some people that they were like, well, I don't want to read. Oh, no problem. They make Audible. And when you know it, Audible offers free credits to get started. I'm like, no, there's many ways to actually obtain information. While on the subject of books, though, I did, have you ever heard of the book Extreme Ownership? Okay, so I fell in love with that book to the point that I went out and bought 6 copies of it and started passing it around leadership, mandating everybody had to read it, because I'm just so huge on accountability and people. It's like, they'll hear it out of my mouth, and it's not that they don't take it seriously, but I'm like, there are just some things better heard out of an author's mouth or out of a different leader's mouth, and somehow it sinks in a little bit differently. So,
yeah, I probably have given away. Matter of fact, I was bringing you one. I left it on the counter. I probably have given away 15 traction books.
Really?
Yeah, and if I read a book and it feels like it's made a difference in my life, I want to share it. I'm like, I can't spend all day giving or telling everybody everything, but I can give it, you know. And same thing with the book, The Circle Maker. That book had a big influence on me. I probably have given away 25 of those books.
Really?
But the one thing that I've learned as being a business owner, you can have a lot of fun at it if you don't make it about the money.
Yep.
You can do a lot of cool things. I don't want to be known as the insurance guy. Right now, if you came and you were down in Westfield and you talk to people in our community, they're like, hey, he's very giving, he's very patriotic. We do, we've got a Flag Day event that's coming up.
Okay.
I love the flag. And you guys do apparel, right?
Yep.
Well, our philosophy has always been, we don't spend money on things that we can't show up for.
Okay.
Because that's called a donation.
Yep.
So when it comes to sponsoring baseball teams, we can't wait for Christian's son to start playing baseball so we can be on his jersey. And he will be at every game. He won't miss a thing because he's working. He's at the event. He's wearing our clothes. Every employee has a closet full of my clothes. Their wife has a closet full of clothes. We all have hoodies. We all have jackets. We do these red, white, and blue shoes. Every year we get a brand new set. Every team gets them.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because no, we got in the gallery here. We've got Matt, and everybody knows that Matt is a rather large individual. And I don't bring this up. Matt brings this up, but he gives me crap saying that we're not fat friendly. And I'm sitting there going, no, not all apparel companies or suppliers are created equal. So I do go out of my way to where we pass out a lot of free clothing inside of the operation. But finding the clothing that fits Matt and that he's comfortable in has shown to be a little bit more of a challenge.
Yeah.
Yes, to the point that now that the apparel company itself has come into the mix, we're doing some deeper dive investigation in it to make sure that Matt gets his fair share of a wardrobe. But yeah. So yes, it's like as you're touching on that, I'm just sitting here feeling Matt just.
Well, we get a brand new pair of shoes every year.
Really?
Every year. And when we first did it, it cost me like $400, but if I'd have spent $400 for an ad, I'd have got whatever day that it ran, was as long as it lasted.
Exactly.
We go out to eat a lot together as a team, right? And we all got our shoes on. If we go to work an event, we all got our shoes on. If they go out somewhere, people are like, where'd you get those shoes? Oh, we got them from work, And this will be our 4th year that we're getting the shoes. We've already got them on order.
Really?
And then, everything that we wear has the flag on it.
Yep.
Because we believe in the flag.
Well, and I mean, to address it, because my grandfather died. The one thing that, I got a couple little memorabilia things. Nobody wanted anything that he had from Chrysler. I was the only one that followed in those footsteps for a while. But I got a pullover or a jacket, and I was happy to take it because it was Grandpa's jacket, and it was just simply a blue jacket with an American flag that said Patriot. And I'm not going to deny that after 9/11, I saw flags flying everywhere. And I watched that dissipate pretty quickly. And it was very depressing because I'm like, there are as bad as we can all tear down all of the problems in this country, but our lower class is middle class to the rest of the world. This country is like, in our lifetimes, in so many generations, the greatest and the highest standard of living that any nation has out there. And I don't understand people that do not have the pride in wearing that flag and the pride in the nation that I just feel like they should have, because we're a great nation. We donate, we take care. I'm not going to deny we probably butt our nose into things we shouldn't butt our nose into, but we take care of so many people and so many nations across the world. And it's, to me, I feel so blessed to have been born here and be an American. And so I appreciate the American flag very much. And I wish it didn't take 9/11 for people to hang a flag out front. That was always something that, like, my grandpa was a snowbird. So when he went to Florida, as he was opening up his trailer, the first thing he did was hang his flag. And when he came back to Indiana, as he's on that first thing, he would just, it was very patriotic. And my generation, I'm like, I don't know what the difference was, but there has been a miss between previous generation and my generation and the next generations, that patriotism has been lost, or it's not as proudly displayed as it once was.
My wife and I and my team, we do a Flag Day event.
Okay.
And we do that, and it was funny. Last year we were at Costco buying flags, and because June 4th, people don't even know what day that is. Well, that's Flag Day, right? So for us, we'll do a huge cookout, and we'll go get 30 flags at Costco, or 30 flags, 100 flags at Costco. They cost us $30 a piece. So we're going to go out and spend $3,000 on flags. We're going to have a huge cookout, and then we have the Boy Scouts come, and we do a flag exchange, so people can bring their flags and exchange them. And then if we get an older client or something like that, they can't put the flag up, the Boy Scouts go mount the flag. So you start planning that route into the kids early. It's funny, one of my neighbors, like on my street, we got flags all down the street, that we gave away. And, people would come, they're like, are you the flag guy? They would say, are you the insurance guy? Are you the flag guy? And I'm like, yeah, I'll get you one. And then I get to tell them about our event and how we do it, and it's through, we help people with their home and auto insurance, and we take part of that money that we raise, and we give flags away. And it was funny, my wife and I last year, we were at Costco, and the lady goes, what are you going to do with all these flags? I'm like, we're going to give them away.
Yeah, fly them.
And she goes, well, why would you do that? And I'm like, because every time someone puts a flag on their house, I hope that it inspires their neighbor to do the same thing.
So would you say that is a major piece of your overall brand?
Branding, absolutely.
Yes. So your brand or the Dean Ballenger Agency brand, or does it all just kind of circle?
It all circles in. Everybody knows that, I love the flag. I'm always going to love the flag. You know, I love the country.
Well, and I mean, don't get me wrong.
But
In today's day and age, that might be a controversial statement, but it shouldn't be a controversial statement.
it shouldn't be. And so you know, when you think, how do you change the generation?
Yeah.
You got to do something that impacts it. You can either complain about it and do nothing, or you can make a change.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the day, you know, it was funny when we founded our business, the church that we were going to and still go to, like 20 some years ago, we've been going that long. You know, our pastor asked us, he said, if we closed today, would anybody miss us? And if not, we're doing something wrong, you know. So for us, when we did our agency, I'm like, man, that's our model. You know, so we do a ton of things, you know. We do things for, you know, to do the flag, you know, to get the community involved. We got an egg drop event this weekend, you know, at Grand Park. They bring the helicopter in, you know, and we don't go to collect, you know, everyone wants to go to an event to get leads. But you need to go to the event to give back.
To participate in the community.
Yeah, you know, exactly. So they'll do 2 events, and we'll give away 2 bicycles in the morning, and we'll give away 2 bicycles in the afternoon. We don't collect anybody's information. We don't want their information. What we create is positive conversation.
That's awesome.
That's what sells, you know. So, you know, we'll do that. We had the Flag Day event. This is the first time we've ever done this. We're doing a marriage retreat or date night, you know, for 450 people. You know,
really?
Yeah. So, and you're welcome to come to it. This guy is a pastor, comedian, and his name is Mark Gungor. And on May the 20th, he's going to do from 7 to 9. It's kind of a cool deal. First, my wife were like, hey, we want to give back. You know, we've had a lot of customers that struggled in their marriage. Let's see if we can't change that, because we've listened to him. We really enjoyed it. So then what we ended up doing was we're like, hey, let's pay for the event. And it was pricey, but we're like, you know what? Our clients are worth it. So we had this grand plan that's what we were going to do. And they're like, you can't give the tickets away. I'm like, what do you mean you can't give the tickets away? If I buy them all, I can.
I knew that's exactly where I was going.
Yeah. And they're like, well, what happens is people won't show up. There's no value in it if they don't have to pay for it.
Yep.
And I'm like, but we wanted to give it away. And so I'm like,
and I've been struggling with that. I mean, in a lot of reading, it has been them making it very clear that whether people want to hear it or not, because people, they say, only want free stuff. If you don't pay for something, you don't assign a value to it, so there's no commitment to actually following through with that thing.
Yeah, or if somebody else comes up with something on the same night, you're like, well, all right, we'll do that. We got nothing invested, right?
Exactly.
So, and at some point in time, you have to believe the people that do it probably know a little bit more than you. So what we decided to do was we're going to sell the tickets, but we're going to give back 100% of the tickets to couples that are in trouble.
Okay. So
now, you know, we're doing this huge event that's a win, and we're going to give back to our clients or couples that come up that need help.
Yeah.
So it's a double win.
Well, and I mean, you know what? Because you get a lot of people that are out there that they offer advice, but you really got to wonder about where that advice comes from. But you said that you've been married 40 years. So I'm thinking that, I don't know, maybe you might bring a little bit of solid advice to holding couples together. But I'm sitting there going, you sell insurance, you're in your community, like, can you encompass or the bigger purpose? What, I mean, do you have a quote unquote bigger purpose or legacy that you're trying to leave, or is it just you're just trying to live your best life and impact as many people as possible? Because it sounds like you've literally you're trying to impact not just here, but I mean everything that we've talked about. You've kind of got your hands in a couple different things in general that it doesn't have anything to do with necessarily making money, as more as it is just being involved in your community. I mean, do you have a bigger purpose or a legacy that you're trying to leave behind?
Well, you know, yes. You know, so when you look, I've got 2 guys that work for me.
Okay.
You know, and, you know, in some of the books that I've read, you know, they talked about Iacocca. I'm sure you're familiar
Very
with him.
familiar with Iacocca.
Yeah.
He's a good man. If he wasn't, my grandfather wouldn't have had 40 years of Chrysler or 49 years of Chrysler, and I wouldn't have enjoyed my 14 years there if it wasn't for Mr. Iacocca.
Yeah, but the thing when you read about him, he was all about him. He wanted to rebuild Chrysler, and he came out with the little Omni and all the little K car.
Yep.
And then he built himself this huge parachute, right? Got his own plane, all these other things.
Oh, his golden parachute.
His golden parachute,
okay.
right? And then Chrysler crashed again.
Yep.
But you talk about some of the guys that you read about that were great in their companies. And so for me, I don't want to sell my agency when I'm done to someone that everything that I put into it collapses.
Yep.
So what I'm doing, I'm pouring out my soul into my two guys so that one day when I leave, I want to see them do better than me.
Okay.
That's success. When I've taught them to take it to the next level, a place I couldn't get it to, then I've won.
Well, and that's as I say, because it literally bears your name. And that was, did you put any calculation into that? When you started, because like State Farm or any other business, generally, like, I know there's got to be a decision-making process there when you open up a business. Do I create a branded name or do I attach my personal name? Obviously, you opted to attach your personal name to it.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so is that something that that part of the legacy of leaving that still running in the process?
It's funny because we have open conversations about it at my office, and Jared and Christian both bought it. They said we'll never change the name of the business.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, dude, well, I don't really care. They're like, no, what you've poured into us, the way you brought us along, why would we ever change it? And people love you. They love what we do. They love our community involvement. Why would we try to change something that's working?
While a change is inevitable, you don't fix what's not broken. I get that. That's
I created our logo. The three leaves. That's stands for for you see insurance for the seasons of your life.
Okay.
So the three leaf colors are the changes of the season.
Okay.
So we tell people, regardless of where you're at, whether you're getting your first condo, first apartment, first car, retirement home, lake house, whatever it is,
yep,
we can help you.
No, and that's where I love to say that I love all three seasons in Indiana. It's just when people want to stump and be like, yeah, no, I don't like that season. I don't want to know. Let's just leave it at the three seasons that I really love in Indiana. But there's one season there that no, we don't want nothing to do with that season. But
yeah.
So, there has got to have been at some point. Do you feel like you've reached the pinnacle of success as far as in your business, like most satisfying moments, or do you feel like the best is still yet to come as far as in your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, I think the best is still to come. I've been tremendously blessed. I've learned a lot. I've got the best team I've ever had. Financially. When I told my wife, I said, hey, we're going to be grossly underpaid when I first get started, and then we'll be grossly overpaid for the rest of our life. We're there.
Yep.
But the nicest thing about that is we can give away more than we ever have.
And you have to be able to get and develop in order to be able to. That's one of the things where I don't like people, let's just say, poo-pooing profit, because I'm like, well, but. One, it's difficult. So if there's not profit, you're going to take away the incentive for anybody to take on an extremely high risk, difficult task. Two, when you do actually succeed and accumulate that, well, that's what allows you to actually give back, which means the profit had to be there to begin with in order for you to actually be able to give back. And just those fallacies that, I don't know whether it's politicians or people just want to badmouth capitalism or profit, and I'm like, you're just looking at it through the wrong lens.
Oh, absolutely. Profit is not a bad word.
No,
right?
Not at all.
If you do something really well and someone pays you for it, that's not a bad thing.
Exactly.
And for us, the thing that you have to remember, you can't wait till you have money to give away.
Exactly.
Because you don't change who you are overnight, and because I get a lot of people that are like, talking about sponsoring a baseball team. You know what? they're like, that's just a donation. Not if you make your employee go to all of his kids' games, because guess what conversation he's going to have when he's there? Well, how do you get so much time off? Because my boss wants me here.
Okay.
Family is important. And people want to do business with people that take care of their employees.
I'll agree with that. Yep.
Take care of people that give back to their community. What I've learned in this business and all my years in the car business, you can't outgive people. And you can't live in the fear that the 5% of the people that take advantage of you get to control the outcome or the viewpoint that you have for the other 95%.
And that right there is that 5%. It's like if that 5% didn't exist, there would be a whole lot more of appreciation for it and not so skittish of like, what are you up to? No, I'm just trying to actually give and be a contributor to society and a decent human being. And it's that 5% that just creates the problems in general.
Yeah. One of the other goals that we have is I'd like to have 10 employees before I retire.
Okay.
And
so where are you now?
7.
7. Okay.
And now I'm like, okay, was that 10 including me and my wife? That was another thing. My wife just joined us about a year and a half ago.
Really?
And it's been huge because at first I didn't think it would work because she kind of resented it, and then I got her involved in working and helping because she is an awesome person. I mean, she's a nurse, so she loves taking care of people. But we had so much fun at work, I think she was kind of jealous, so it created a little resentment. She's like, you guys are always having fun. You're always doing things. So I brought her on board. She went with me last year when we got our flags the first time, and she was there when the gal asked why we do that.
And after all these years, that was her first experience in that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because she always supported me from the outside.
Yeah.
Super supportive, but she didn't want to get in my way. And and honestly, after 40 years, I'm like, here's the deal. Women are in charge at home. I don't care what men,
I personally think, by and large, women are more in charge than what people give them credit for, or what they give themselves credit for sometimes. But I mean, in many, many ways, they hold a whole lot of power and persuasive ability over men. They just don't necessarily get the limelight and the credit for that.
Absolutely. And so it was one of those deals. I didn't want my wife to come to my office and be my boss.
Okay.
So
she's my boss at home. I don't want her to be my boss at work.
At home, I want to be in charge somewhere, And so what we did, we set it up so she doesn't answer to me.
Okay.
She comes in as a supportive role for my team, and they work with her, and they love her, and it works for me. The other thing that I had to learn is you have to stop working in your business so that you can work on it.
And that right there is a huge struggle of small business. And I mean, just like the apparel company that I just took over, I mean, candidly, the stress killed him. And my heart goes out to those small businesses. What I would ask is unpack what you just said, because at this point, it's cliche. And I wonder if the small business people that hear this, I think that they need to understand, like on a deeper level, what are we saying? What are you saying when you say the problem is they're working in it, not on it? They need to understand that to ever break those chains, to make that transition that I think all small businesses, or all business in general, goes into business to achieve a certain level of freedom. And then working in it, they never accomplish that freedom. And my fear is they never understand why. So I'm like, can you elaborate on the statement to unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I get asked that a lot, because it's so funny when I meet with a lot of guys that are like, well, then what do you do? If you're not working in it, what do you do? And which made me think, what do I do? And forever, when you I don't know, what's your business card say? What's your title on your business card?
Maybe I'm not the guy I don't carry business cards, and I know that it's easy for me to say that I'm not real big on titles. I know that it's easy for me to say that I'm not real big on titles because I carry that founder or that CEO title. I try not to make a big deal about that, albeit I have some people that care very much about those titles, and then I have some other people that that they see it as obnoxious to the point that they will go out of their way to develop some very creative titles for themselves just to participate in the title game itself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked, because forever I had agency owner.
Okay.
And then when I told the guys that I was changing it, they're like, but you own the agency. I'm like, but that's not my job. And truly, when I put the agency owner on there, what's everyone think? That I can do everything.
Yep.
Right? But I needed to separate myself. So I'm like, okay, where am I the most valuable? What do? I make the phone ring. I got to get out and make the phone ring. So I changed my business card to remind me of what my job was in the office.
Okay.
The sales and marketing director.
Okay.
Because I make it rain.
Yep.
You know, and it also helps me remember what I need to be out doing.
Yep.
You know, I don't need to be emptying the trash can. I need to be outside making the phone ring.
Okay.
You know, so, you know, it was eliminating task, and it was really simple. I wrote down all the things that I loved about my job and all the things that I didn't. And then everything that I didn't, I allocated.
There we go. Yep.
Okay. So then I could focus on the things that I like to do. And then I said, okay, what generates income for my business? If I had to pick my strengths, or I asked my team, and by the way, my team reviews me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, during one of those reviews, they're like, you have to stop trying to show us you can outwork us. And when you leave the office, we're not worried about you goofing around.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to the bank, someone calls us and says, hey, Dean was in and I want to talk to somebody about insurance. If you go to wherever you go to the store, you run into people that call.
They're able to track you just by the leads you're generating. That's great.
So stop focusing on teaching us, we got it, and go help us grow.
Okay.
You know.
Well, and I've long said that, I've always seen that my number one job was to drive sales. And then very quickly I realized that my number two job was to protect the business. But the way I've tried to describe it to people is it's inverse, that you have your frontline people that are doing the work, and in the beginning of the business, you're right there with them doing the work. Sooner or later, you got to transition to a manager, and the manager is underneath the employees because they're there to serve the employees or the frontline team that's performing the work and make sure that they have the tools. And then ideally, you're now taking another step lower on the totem pole and becoming the coach of the managers themselves. And your job is to make sure that your frontline and your managers have the tools they need to actually perform the work. But it is that 30,000-foot view of working on the systems and finding the right people to put in place to execute, and then getting out of their way and letting them execute.
Yeah, you know, and then the other thing that people struggle with that I see in the industry is they want to understaff because they're trying to control cost. And so instead of having we take a different philosophy. We want to hire more than we need and grow into it.
Yep.
Because if you're limited on staff, you're limited on growth.
Yes.
I mean, you can't grow if you're boxed in and everyone's maxed out and they're stressed out and they're complaining, right?
Yep, exactly.
So, we hire more than we need and we try to grow into it. And it's that mentality. I talked to one of my buddies in the business the other day. He goes, you know what? He goes, you write twice the business that we write, but you got twice the employee overhead. So we probably right now make about the same amount of money. Mm-hmm. I said, you're right. But when we grow into it, I'm going to write 4 times.
That's what I was about to say, but you're already set up to grow a lot bigger. Yeah.
But they just don't think outside the box because they're constantly focused on how much money they're making.
Yeah.
And, we're outside the box. One of the things that I told my kids, I'm like, hey, when you get hired in, and this is good advice for young kids, right? Mm-hmm. You come out of college, you get hired in at a certain income. And then you get that steady little raise.
Yep.
Well, it's like I told all my kids, once you've got 3 years of experience, the difference between what you're worth and what you could go get, it's huge. And all of my kids changed and got large increases.
Really?
because corporate America says, you bring them in and you give them that little cost of living.
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty soon they've been with you 10 years. They got more vacation time. They got more money. But if you had to go out and replace your employee that you've had for 5 years, would you pay that employee more now than what he's making?
Mm-hmm.
And those are things that you got to ask yourself.
Exactly.
Those are questions I had this year with my two best employees. And I went in and I sat down with them. I'm like, man, if I had to replace them today, would it cost me more money? And I'm like, it absolutely would.
Mm-hmm.
So I called them both into the office and I elevated them substantially. And they're like, why would you do that? And I'm like, because if I had to replace you today, that's what you would be worth. And if you think about it, if you've got an employee that leaves or is going to leave, and you're like, well, I'll match it. Did you really win if he stays?
No, because the seed has already been planted. And once the seed of separation is planted, it takes very little for that seed to grow. Yep.
And, and they feel like the only reason that they got it is because they made you give it.
Yep.
And, so it's just a different philosophy. If you want a great business and you want your people to give you 100%, you got to love them 100%.
No, I couldn't agree more, because I'm a big believer in giving it without having to be asked for it. So that, because, you have some personalities that they're fine with asking for more. Matter of fact, they'll ask for more every single day. And then you have other personalities that they're not comfortable with that. They just want to feel like they do good and they're being taken care of. And it's like, well, those are the people that you want to make sure that you are giving to them without ever putting them in a position that uncomfortable position of having to ask for more. And that's how you develop that tenure and keep people around you.
Yeah. And honestly, it goes back to the right people in the right seat, right? If you got the right people, you should really be rewarding them.
Yep.
And if you don't have the right people and they keep asking and you don't think they're worth it, replace them.
Yep.
Because you got the wrong person.
No, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. So, Dean, as we start wrapping all of this up, one of the biggest reasons I created this podcast was because, one, I'm real big about accountability, because I think people should own their own shit. But when I started in business in 2005, I'm not making any excuses. Information was out there. It was in the libraries, but it was a lot harder. Like the ready access to information, it wasn't there back then. And I mean, there are thought leaders out there. I am a small business person with a lot to say and an aspiring thought leader. But my point is, I want to bring that information and be a part of the community that is bringing the information to people, because information is easily accessible today. So when you think about principles for success in life and business, these are the things that I wanted to bring to the forefront for other people that were looking at entrepreneurship or in their early journey of entrepreneurship. Do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to impart on people that are earlier in their journey?
I don't get caught up with yourself. Like I said, make it so that you have a bigger purpose. When you're setting your goals, start at the end. What will you want people to say about you? What legacy will you want to leave? And then back yourself into what has to happen for that to take place. Because, what happens now is so many people, they go, well, I want to do the 1 year, the 5 year, and 10 year, and they make the goal all about them, versus making the goals all about others. We're kind of weird when all of our different carriers come in. They're like, hey, we need you to, they don't do it anymore, but they used to come in and say, hey, we need your forecast. And it was all based on numbers, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, we don't have any. And they're like, what do you mean you don't have any? I mean, aren't you worried about your numbers? I'm like, I'm not. I'm worried about our activities. And as long as we're loving our clients and we're wowing them, and trying to make sure that every customer, so many times in the business, and I don't know about you guys, but you've probably seen this too, people focus on getting the new sale all the time. We get 98% of all of our clients from referrals.
Yep.
because we try to wow every client into being a referral source.
And that word of mouth is,
Yeah.
it's the cheapest and most powerful source of business out there.
Yeah.
That's
And don't give away cheap crap. If
Yep.
you wouldn't keep it, they don't want it. And if you spend $400 on cheap crap, they're all going to throw it away.
exactly.
You know, when we do T-shirts, you know, we do a home show event, you know, and everyone cracks up, but they're amazed at the amount of people that show up. You know, you got all these people that do this home show event, and we use it as our customer appreciation event.
Okay.
So, you know, we give away brand new T-shirts to all of our clients that show up at the event. This year, we gave away really cool coffee mugs.
Okay.
You know, and it was probably the coolest event that we had there. But we were so backed up for people trying to come see us that other people were going, what are they doing over there? What are they doing? And I'm like, well, it's our customer appreciation event, and customers stopping, saying hello. And our customers were talking to people that were trying to see what we were giving away if it was something free. And they're like, you don't have insurance with them? Oh, you sure? They're awesome. So we had so many people show up, we created a backlog, and our customers were talking to other people that they should be getting insurance from us because they love us. You know?
That's great.
And, you know, we've done it now for about 5 or 6 years, and all the other vendors are like, you know, when you told us that the first time, we thought you were nuts. But your people love you. And now a lot of them ask us to do their insurance because they're like, if you're doing something right, because if that many people love you,
Yep.
you're doing something right.
Well, and that's what I said. You talked about handing out shirts, and it's I made I think I'm probably about like every other small business is that you decide that you want to give an employee a shirt. Well, that as a small business, you're like, okay, well, what's the cheapest shirt that I can get? Well, generally, the cheapest shirt that you can get is a heavy cotton shirt. Then I noticed after a couple of years, I'm wearing my own shirt, and I'm like, I don't even like wearing this shirt. It's not. And then I was like, you know what? If I just spend an extra couple bucks, I can actually get better material for my shirt. And you know what? People will be happy to wear the shirt because it actually feels comfortable on them. So it was a huge realization to step up my game and actually offer higher quality apparel just for my own employees in the stores. And you know what? A lot of the issues with getting them to wear the stuff actually kind of went away.
Yeah, you know, my employees and my customers, they're like, this is our favorite shirt. It's so soft, it's comfortable, you know, and you know, I'm the visionary guy, right? So I always have to put a saying. So every year there's a new saying on the back of the T-shirt. I don't know if this one here.
Every day should feel this good. Insurance with Dean. Insure with Dean. That's awesome, dude. That's
So you just, you know, think outside the box and have fun with things. But, you know, and everybody wears it. You know, I mean, we see customers out all over the place with T-shirts, you know. I see guys running through my neighborhood with my T-shirt on.
Yep.
You know, and that's such a cool feeling. And you know, how long you've lived in this area?
Kokomo, I mean, I'm pushing 25 years here. And I'm 47, and I moved back here because the family was here about, I'm pushing 27 years.
Well, you know, one of the things that really impressed me when I first moved to Kokomo was Faust Motors in Tipton.
Okay.
I don't know if they were around when you were here.
Honestly, the name doesn't ring a bell, but I mean.
But that guy gave away hats.
Okay.
And it didn't matter where you went. I mean, this was a GM town too, right? But everywhere you went had Faust Motor hats. And I'm like, that is just like off the Richter. But it was great branding.
Yep.
Right? And so we've never spent any money on getting leads. You know, we don't do Google things. You know, occasionally we'll boost a post if we're doing an event or something like that.
Yep.
But everything we do is sponsor locally and give away stuff with our logo on it.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Okay, so we've had a pretty good conversation here. When you know what? Real quickly, what kind of insurance is it that you actually sell? I mean, I know that there's like that saying I sell insurance is such a broad. I mean, do you sell all insurance, or is there a specialized?
You know, it was one of those deals where, you know, when you go to work for insurance, you know, you can write commercial insurance, home, auto, life, medical, all these different things, right? And you go around and you talk to everybody, and they're all doing the same thing. Now, State Farm, they're a captive agency, so they can only do State Farm products, right? But when I started out with American Family, and they were a good company, but they only sell their products.
Okay.
So that means you can only sell white T-shirts.
Yep.
So, we started and switched over to become an independent agency, what meant we could represent multiple companies.
Yep.
So we've got multiple companies because not everyone fits into this one company's ideal client. So we can look around, different coverages, different things. So, and then what we realized was we needed to create a niche. Mm-hmm. And what would our niche be? And this was huge. I mean, we took off and everyone thought, you can't do that. But I went out to Boston, flew a couple of my teams out with me. We went out, we met with an agency out there that was a rock star. Mm-hmm. And what they decided was, same thing in the agency. What do we like doing and what do we don't? And the things that we like doing and we have fun at, that's our niche.
Okay.
So we're like, we're going to do home and auto. Home, auto, renters, umbrella. We'll do commercial auto or commercial insurance if we have the home and auto. Mm-hmm. But if not, we do 100%. So what we do, we market 100% for home and auto.
Okay.
Because what I found was when I did 10% here and 20% here, mm-hmm. I got 10% and 20% results.
Okay.
But when we went 100% all in on what we all were really good at and love to do, it was like a rocket.
That's awesome. So you take care of people at their door, and if just so happens they have their hands in other things, you can service that, but you're not worried about servicing that. It's right there at their literally their home and their car door. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yep. You picked a place, and obviously you're doing quite well with taking care of those people. Mm-hmm. So where do people find you? I'm saying that because, obviously I know that you got brick and mortar presence, but in this day and age of online, it's like there's 20 ways to be found. How do people go about actually finding you?
You can if you go on Google, you Google Dean Ballenger Agency. I think we just got our 29th review. We've got 239th review, so we've got several reviews that you can look through, or you can find us on our webpage at insurewithdean.com. And, we've got a brand new website that we just launched. We're pretty proud of it. It's got all the guys and their family. And, because, if you call in and you're talking to one of my employees, you want to know a little bit about them, right? Mm-hmm. If you're basing it on knowing, liking, and trusting.
Yep.
So there's information about them and their family, what they like, what they're, and so you know who you're talking to, because someone that's 80 years old, they might not want to work with someone that's 27.
You're right. Yep.
But if you got someone that's 27 and they got a new family, they're like, oh, I can relate to this person.
Exactly.
So we want them to know and choose who it is that they want to work with.
So you literally got bios of all of your people out there on your website for people to actually check out.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. You're just up front giving everybody a peek behind the curtains, if you will, before they ever actually make contact.
Yeah, and it's funny because I get a lot of guys who are like, well, why you put all that out there? Because, there's people in the industry who try to steal your employees. Mm-hmm. I say, good luck.
There we go. I know.
Good luck. I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to love on them more than me.
Yep.
And I've proved that to them. So
that's awesome. Brother, thank you very much for coming out.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's been a pleasure. All right, we are we're going to wrap this up. I know that I think that we're somewhere in the 25th episode, and I look forward to this as far as bringing a perspective of insurance into this, because I know that I wanted to give a broad spectrum of businesses in general. But if you learn something, definitely comment. Share the show. I am real big about, I want to get, it is championing small business and highlighting small business stories, and definitely share the show, because I know, just as I'm replaying in my head, there's a whole lot of nuggets that are in this one for aspiring entrepreneurs and lessons. But Dean, thank you very much for coming out for the interview, brother.
Oh, thanks for having me out.
All right. Hey, all right. You guys have a good night. Until next time.